Skip it up and that up. So I just saw a video today by Solid Rev. I'll have a link to his video below in the description. You can check it out. Called God of War Made Me Question My Abilities as a Gamer. And it struck a chord with me because after I played God of War, I thought the same thing. Now look, I know I get all the time in the comments that I suck at games, okay? And I'll admit that, look, I'm not MLG by any means, but there's two genre of games, minus online, that I consider myself fairly competent at, and that's action platformers and first-person shooters. I am not pro by any means, but I can get by. So going into God of War, especially because I beat the first three, I was feeling pretty confident, man. Like, yeah, man, I'm going to do good on this stream. I'm not going to play it on any insane difficulty, like hard or anything. I think it's called Godlike, the one beyond it. If I'm wrong, don't chastise me. I'm going off the top of my head right now. But I'm going to play it on normal, you know, and I play the other God of Wars. Even if the controls are different, I'll adapt and get used to it. So I start the live stream and I start the game, and the controls are different from other God of Wars. And I saw myself struggling. You know, obviously they have the tutorials of what buttons to hit and things like that. And I would follow them and be like, all right, so R1 is a light attack and R2 is a heavy attack. It's different from the other God of Wars. They used to use the face buttons, but whatever, man. You know, things change, games evolve, and I'll just evolve and adapt with the game like I've always done. But I saw myself throughout the game struggling. And it started to freak me out because I felt like my parents' friends back in the day, when they used to come over and see me playing N64 and things like that and say to me, oh, Rich, you know, I'd love to play games, but they're getting too complicated for me. And it was at that moment that I felt very old. It was weird. Now, in the new God of War, you have to work with Kratos' son, Atreus, who in the new God of War, Kratos isn't fast enough to get certain enemies because he's getting older as well. So Atreus has to stun them with his bow and arrow. And, you know, I was already feeling uncomfortable with the controls to begin with, which was freaking me out because, oh my God, they're different, and my brain wasn't adapting to the differentness. But there was this one scene, I don't remember exactly what the character's called. I'll just call her like a wench or a witch or whatever the case may be. And the only way for Kratos to attack her was to have Atreus actually hit her with the bow and arrow. And for some reason, I could not wrap my mind around that. I spazzed out and I must have died at this character 5 or 6 times. And people in the live stream were saying, Rich, you are terrible at this. And there's a lot of times where if I'm playing like CSGO, and actually I do somewhat decent in certain matches that I used to show my gameplay footage when I was using gameplay footage on YouTube, where I actually did pretty good. And I'm like, I placed like second, dude. Or some matches I even placed first, but because I actually died. You know, even though I placed like first or second, that you think I'm terrible, like whatever, man. You know, look, I'm not one of those professional streamers, so say what you want to. But this time, when people in the comments were like, Rich, you're doing really bad, I'm like, you're right. I am doing bad. Why am I struggling with these controls, and why am I not wrapping my mind around this? And then finally, I beat this character and moved on, and I beat a couple other bosses in the live stream. And you know, it's not that I wasn't competent, but throughout the rest of the live stream, I kept on. There were times where I just, you know, like when in the new God of War, when you beat a character down or beat an enemy down, there's like a purple halo that goes around them, which means that if you click the right analog stick, Kratos will do a finishing move on them. And for some reason, I kept on hitting both analog sticks and going into that rage mode that Kratos has. And I'm like, good, why am I just not doing this? Why is this not becoming second nature? And I started to think back being younger, and I'm like, oh my God, I'm becoming that person that when I was 16, I used to make fun of. I'm becoming fucking old, and it's tougher for me to wrap my mind around the controls. I remember being 16, and that was around the time that GoldenEye came out, and my parents' friends would come over, and some of them were gamers, and they were a little bit older than me or around my age. And they were saying, man, that looks great, you know, or one of them said, I remember, I got an N64 and I wanted to get GoldenEye, and I got it, and I just can't wrap my mind around the controls, so I just got frustrated and stopped playing it. And I remember thinking, you old bastard, like how hard is it, man? Just learn the controls. And now, me being 36, around the age of my parents' friends from my past that I remember, I'm starting to relate to that. I'm not catching on to controls how I used to. I'm not catching on to new gameplay mechanics in new games like I used to be able to. And it's fucking freaking me out. Another perfect example is with Super Mario Odyssey. I have a younger brother who's 15 years old, and he has Super Mario Odyssey as well. And it's a great game. I haven't had time to finish it because, welcome to being a parent. I have an infant son and a 1.5-year-old son. And my brother came over and he knew this like jumping cheat technique that requires crazy finger work to get down. Okay, but it helps you get to certain areas of the map that would be really tough to get to without it. Technically, it's not something that you need to use to play Super Mario Odyssey, but it really helps if you get this jumping technique down. And it would be something back in the day, man, when I was his age, I would get 1, 2, 3 just like that. And I'm sitting there when he was showing me. He came over during the holidays and played it with me, and I was fumbling, man. I couldn't get it. I eventually, after like 20, 30 minutes, was able to finally get the move down. But even then, it was still like, I couldn't do it naturally. And this is something I know when I was my brother's age, that I would get down just like that. And again, it just frustrated me. And that's why I tried for like 20, like, no, I'm going to get this. I have been gaming for way too goddamn long. I can do this. And yeah, I finally got it, but with a struggle. And that used to not be me. And now I think back to my parents' friends who used to be like, oh, these games are getting too complicated. And it kind of scares me. But now, as I'm in my mid-30s, I relate a little bit. What the hell is happening to me, man? Now, obviously, look, other things come into play too, and I'm going to be honest with you about something else. Due to how much I'm at this office, and when I'm home, I have 2 babies, 2 little sons, 1.5 years old, and one that's 2 months old. My free time is minimum. So I don't have that much time to game. I'll keep it real with you. I want a game. I buy a ton of new games when they come out, and I have full intentions on playing them, but every single time I buy a game, I never have time to touch it because I have a lot of other obligations. I'm sure that's part of it too. But even when I took gaming hiatuses as a kid, which I took even bigger ones than I sometimes do now due to all my other obligations, I used to be able to just pick up a controller, even if it was a new game with a new control scheme that I was not familiar with at all, and just pick it up. I don't know why I snapped before. I should have just snapped right there, but you get my point. And now, no, I don't pick it up the same way I used to. Now, does this mean I'm going to stop gaming and just sell all my consoles and give up on this? No, even if I wasn't doing Review Tech USA, I'm sure I'd be buying a couple gaming PCs and all the consoles. Like, I just know me, man. That's just how I am. Even if I don't have time to game, I love knowing that the game is there, so when I do have the time, I can play it. But just with what happened with God of War and hearing what Solid Rev was talking about, even though it was kind of a different angle than what I'm talking about, it makes you think about getting older, and it makes you think, and it frustrates you a little bit knowing that you may not have the same abilities that you had maybe even 15, 20 years ago. Getting older sucks. To all the younger people that are watching this that wishes they were adults, no, you don't. Enjoy being a kid, man. Enjoy being young. Enjoy being that you could pick up a new game and just catch on with it just like that. Because when you get older, you have more responsibilities and you end up not being as good at things that you used to be. And I'm noticing that with me with games now, and it sucks. You start realizing that you're getting older and you aren't as capable as you used to be. And it's a little bit depressing. Maybe it's just me, but it's a little bit depressing. This is Rich at Review Tech USA signing out. Have a good one.